Hello everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode here on 1950's Farm. As you can see, we've got the straw chopper out. Wow, crikey. We've got the tree chopper out, or the log splitter, I guess. But as I say, in the 1950s, this is not how a log splitter would have looked. So I mistakenly kind of said that they would have been on the back of tractors and split that way. Now, that is true. You know, I've spoken to Ray about such thing, and he said that that's he said that that's not wrong to say that. He personally had a log splitter on the back of a I think he said it was a field marshal, but he did give me the model, and now I can't remember what the model is. So he said that was fairly accurate, but PA Plowboy and Ray both said actually you'll find that most people were splitting them by hand. He said like by using the axe, and he did give the base of it a name as well, and I can't remember that either. But yeah, so he said that was how it would mainly be done. And I said, well, I can't really do either. In the game, I said, should I do it? Should I? And he said, well, yeah, because he said it's representative of what we would have done in the 1950s, even though it isn't quite. He said it's a bit like your cotton harvester machine. He said it's representative of what they probably would have looked like in the 50s, even though it is a much more modern day version. So he said I wouldn't worry too much about it. He said at the end of the day, he said it's good to show the jobs that were done in the winters of the 1950s and what have you. He said, and it's not your fault that you can't represent that accurately. He said unless you knew how to make things for the game itself, he said then you can't really do that. What would be really cool is if someone made an axe that gave it the sort of log splitter, so that when you hit a log, it split it. That would be pretty cool. But as I say, I would have no idea how to do that myself. So we'll forgo such things. But yeah. So that's basically all we're doing. As I've said before, we're sort of clearing these trees, clearing the wood, out of the farm that we had, which is what they did do in the 1950s. So they cleared a lot of the sort of trees and surrounding sort of hedges and bushes and stuff like that to make way for more land, because both the dairy and Harry realised that farming was growing in a rapid way and machinery was getting bigger. Alright, still not nowhere near the size that we know today, but when you consider, the first things that they would have used would have been, horse-drawn implements and carts and stuff like that. So suddenly to have, a mechanical tractor that is suddenly capable of going from scattering seeds with hands to the primitive sort of pulled behind a horse seed drill, to then suddenly one that the dairy and Harry use, which is the trail John Deere one that we've got that came out in the 1950s with the new crawler from John Deere. As I've said before, the John Deere released that crawler, and then they released a wide drill and quite a large trail plough to go on the back of it, to kind of, if you like, highlight the actual pulling power of the crawler, and the sort of thing, the sort of acreage, if you like, that farms could achieve in a day by buying sort of John Deere. And I realised that, and I didn't know until someone on YouTube pointed it out to me, that John Deere have since kind of in the last few months or whatever it is, I don't know exactly the time scale, but have sort of in a way shafted their customers by saying, oh well, actually now you can't, you know, do an oil change yourself and different things, and you know, it has to be done, everything has to be done by a John Deere, you know, sort of service mechanic or engineer, or however you want to call them, and I think that's you know, totally wrong, and John Deere's is very short-sighted, and I think they will lose a lot of sales through it. The only way that they won't is if every other agricultural company you know, takes a familiar route. And if I was ATCO or someone like that, I would now be selling the fact that these tractors could be serviced and maintained by the farm on the go as quick as possible, and that you don't need, for the basics, you don't need an engineer coming out. So, but as I say, I don't know too much details about it because I've not really been, say, reading up on that, but that's what I understand. So yeah, good old John Deere, eh? I must admit, I did see some videos of a few months ago. It kept coming up in my sort of YouTube feed that, you know, and it was sort of sensationalist headlines on these YouTube videos, you know, and I just thought it was for views. You know, John Deere shafts customers, and you know, the blah 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 blah. And I was kind of thinking, well, shut up, like, you know. And then someone pointed it out to me, and because I happened to make a comment about John Deere, so clearly they obviously, well, he told me they run a farm in America, and that I think he said his farm was in Missouri, and they were John Deere, and they lived, you know, not too far from a John Deere dealership, and since John Deere sort of changed their policies, they're now driving several hundred miles to the Case dealership. So yeah, like I say, I don't know all the details, and you know, I only sort of know what I was told and what I kind of saw on YouTube. But alright, the reason why that keeps missing is because I've got too many logs there. So what we need to do is we just need to sell them, and then suddenly the game picks up again. It does get to the point where the game kind of goes, yeah, you're going to need to get rid of some of these because I can't process all that. But yeah, so basically, as I said before, you know, all we're doing, and I've done a bit today, you know, I have done a bit today. We're just clearing these trees, and then eventually what's going to happen is that whilst we're not going to go probably this way and join it all up to make one humongous field, it would be this way. And I've got to say, doesn't this wheat look fantastic? I mean, if you were growing that in real life, you would look at that field and think, now that is something to be proud of. That looks like that's going to yield about 50 tons to the hectare, doesn't it? I mean, you would be lucky if you get what? I mean, on the farm, on the second farm that I worked on, you know, if wheat wasn't doing 5 ton to the acre, then yeah, it was not a good year. And my advice would be to stay well away from the bosses, because it wasn't a good year. But it wasn't very often we didn't hit that, and if we didn't hit it, it was more often than not, you know, sort of weather or disease related as to why we didn't hit that target. But yeah, I mean, I remember when I first joined the farm, you know, that they were aiming for around sort of 3.5 ton to the acre, and kind of you know, sort of that's going to be you know, a good year. Then in so the year after I joined, so this is sort of like my second harvest, if you like, it was then sort of 4, you know, to 4.5 ton an acre, and year on year it just sort of kept going up. We were, sort of learning new things. We were, sort of doing all the soil analytics and stuff like that. Yeah, it was. It suddenly became, the sort of bigger farms in the area, because there was kind of us and sort of two others really. And yeah, it was kind of us and two others. So yeah, it was us and two other farms, and the the it became a little bit of a competition, and you would try very hard to kind of beat them. I mean, it was all friendly banter. I mean, there was no sort of no level of sabotage, or we must sort of, it was all sort of friendly banter, as I say, between us. But yeah, we all, because so my pay was salaried, and then on top of my salary, I used to get performance related bonus. So if the wheat hit, I think the second year, so the first year I didn't get the bonus at all, because I hadn't been there that growing year, if you see what I mean. It was, I literally joined at harvest, so I didn't get the bonus. But the second year, as long as the wheat hit 4 ton an acre, whatever fields averaged 4 ton an acre, then I would get a bonus for that. And then, as I say, and then eventually it went up to sort of 5, and we kind of sort of thought it was so they didn't have to, because most fields were hitting the minimum target sort of thing. So we kind of sort of thought that it was to stop paying us like as much bonuses. And we used to get bonuses and incentives for everything. So if your tractor, and implements that you use, because as I say, we genuinely sort of tried to stick to our own stuff, so our own tractors. It was very rare that we drove each other's tractors, and most of us on the arable team had a crawler of some sort. I had a Challenger. To be fair, when I joined, we all had Challengers, and then by the time I was getting ready to, sort of have to give up my job because of my heart condition, some John Deeres had sort of crept on to the farm. We had a quad track anyway, and Steve that drove the quad track, he still to this day has a quad. Well, he has a 9RX actually now, but the quad track is still on the farm. Yeah, but and then we all had our own wheel tractor as well then. So we had a crawler tractor, or track tractor if you like, and then we had a wheel tractor as well, so that if conditions got a bit wet or what, I mean, because people sort of say, oh, I thought their traction's supposed to be brilliant. You try ploughing heavy sugar beet land in the wet with tracks, it ain't happening. It really ain't happening. I don't care how good the tractor is. I don't care how good the tracks are. I don't care how good the traction is. We just were not doing it. And as soon as I used to do, near enough all of the ploughing on the farm, as I say, a wet, sort of sugar beet field, in sort of November, December, with tracks, like I say, it just wasn't happening. There was no way that the Challenger would manage it. So then I used to use my wheel tractor then, and I had a couple. So I started off with a 7930, which was a nice tractor. I like that tractor, but again, its sort of pulling power was, it wasn't rubbish, but it wasn't what we were looking for, but it wasn't rubbish. It was a good pulling tractor, just not good enough. You know, I could only manage really, you know, sort of my. If I wanted to plough hassle-free all day, a 6-furrow mounted plough on the back of it, no trouble at all. But we had an 8-metre offset mounted Lemkin. An 8-metre? No, we didn't have an 8-metre. We had an 8-furrow offset mounted Lemkin. I would have liked an 8-metre one. That would have been nice. I would have got ploughing done much quicker then. I definitely would have been achieving some bonuses then. But yeah, so yeah, we as I say, had that, but it struggled with that, to be fair. So then I moved up to an 8530, and then the year before I left, I had an 80, 80. Was it an 84? I can't remember what it was now. $84.50, was it? Well, $84.40, something like, or $84.30 maybe. Okay, I'll have to look at. I'll have to dig out my pictures, because I have got a picture of most of the tractors that I drove, and I'll have to pick it out. I can't remember what the numbers were. And then there was, so whilst you didn't necessarily just have that clear, it's because the elevator is a little bit higher than whoa, no, I don't know what happened there. Darn it. Right. It's because the elevator gets a little bit too high for it right now. I've got to reset all this now. I think that should be okay. Right, what we'll do is, as well, we'll just sell that wood that we've got in there. There we go. Yeah, so as I say, you know, and we would get bonuses for, yeah, I don't know, a lot of things. You know, like I say, wheat yielding over 4 ton, and then eventually 5, and then you know, barley's over 3.5, and you know, sort of stuff like that. And you know, that was what we would you know, sort of get bonuses, as I say, for, and then you would get like so they were called field operation bonuses. So you know, if you so they used to have sort of, not deadlines as such that it had to be done by such, but there would be tolerances in how long it would take to plough. So you know, if say I had a block of 400 acres and they said, you know, you've got 2 weeks to plough it, then as long as I got, you know, even within the 2 weeks, then, you know, it wasn't much of a bonus, but you would get a little bit of a, you know, because you're hitting your targets. So sort of target related performance, really. You know, they would give you a set amount, you know, to sort of do, and then you know, sort of had to do them. You know, for drilling, for example, you know, the target was 650 acres a week. And if you hit that, you know, then you would obviously get your performance related bonus. And it was possible, you know, it was possible to do. You know, we had sort of 2 drills going most of the time in the autumn. You know, so it you know, it was more than an achievable target. And to be fair, actually, if it was a dry year and there was enough land cleared in front of you, you could achieve that by yourself. You know, with, let alone having the second drill involved, you know, you could achieve that by yourself. And I mean, when sort of harvest was sort of in full swing, i.e. combine was going on, you know, potato lifting was happening, onion lifting was happening, and stuff like that, and say the canola needed drilling, you know, I used to sort of drill, you know, I'd be the only drill going, and you know, I could easily achieve that but as long as the land was, you know, cleared in front of me. If the land wasn't cleared in front of me and I was having to do it myself, then I mean that did get taken into consideration. So then what would happen is, which as I say did happen, where I'd have to clear the land myself, i.e., you know, stubble cultivate or, you know, whatever they were doing to it. If I had to do that myself and then go back and drill it and then go back and roll it, as long as in total I had done 600 acres, you know, sort of, you know, by the end of the week, then you know, in one of those jobs or a combination of all of those jobs, then you know, I would still get my performance bonus. It to be fair, used to get lowered if you were doing it all by yourself. You know, it would be sort of lowered to give you more of a chance, because, you know, clearing land for yourself and then having to go back and drill it and then having to go back and roll it, you know, because we've sort of got all of the workforce tied up elsewhere. You know, because of, I mean, you know, when you're harvesting, the harvest takes priority, you know, over everything really. So, but yeah, it was a you know, it was a good time. But you know, in the winter time we used to do stuff like this if it was too wet to be on the land, or, you know, if it was snowing or whatever. You know, this is the sort of jobs that we would have done in the winter. You know, sort of tree felling and you know, sort of and you know, logging up and what have you. You know, so yeah, it's I think it's a job that most farms probably do, that and draining or ditching, depending on what farm you work on. So on the first farm I worked on, it was called draining. On the second farm that I worked on, it was called ditching. It just sort of depends which part of Lincolnshire you're from. And you know, the border is about, you know, sort of 2 miles. You know, you one side of the border it's ditching, you know, literally the other side it's draining. But yeah, so it's but you know, they were jobs that we used to do as well in the winter. So we'd literally walk water courses, so dikes, rivers, drains, you know, and we'd either dig them out, or, you know, we would do you know, maintenance if there were fields that had, you know, lakes of water on them. Then you know, we would also sort them out as well. We had 3 or 4 mini excavators that we could sort of take to the fields and you know, sort of drain them to the dike. You know, so yeah, that's the sort of things you did. And it was you know, it was enjoyable to do those different jobs. And you know, the one thing I liked about ditching was the sort of exercise involved. Back in the day when I could actually walk and not get out of breath and not, you know, get dizzy and fall over and all of the other crazy stuff that goes on in my life now. You know, I used to walk miles and miles and miles. You know, I used to take my backpack with my lunch in. And like literally, you know, if they said like you're going to be, you know, sort of ditching around the farm or whatever, you know, that could be sort of a 3, 4, 5 mile radius. And they were like, you know, just take one of the old trucks or the tractor. And I was like, sod off, I'll walk it. And they looked at me and was like, what? I said, I'll walk it. I said, like, it's bloody good exercise. And so I used to have my draining rod and my spade. And then, like, if I come to a field and it had got, like, you know, lakes of water in it or whatever, I would then sort of just jot down on a little notepad which field it was. And then once I'd got them sort of drained or ditched, you know, once I'd got them done and got all the drains cleared out, all the land drains. I mean, some land drains, you'd be in there, you'd be, you know, at the bottom of the dike, and you'd see all the water on top, you know, above you on the field. And you know, you would then sort of find the drain, you'd dig it all out and, you know, clear all the, you know, sort of bank around it and just, you know, make it so that it could run. And then you'd get your draining rod, shove that up there, keep sort of banging and poking and prodding about until soil started to come, and then as soon as the water came out, you'd hear it coming, like just it's a bit like the scene from Die Hard with a Vengeance when they let the water down the aqueduct towards Bruce Willis when he's in that truck. It's a bit like that. You can hear it coming. It's loud, man. It is really loud. And then what would happen is that the water would come gushing out and go into the dike, and you would literally just stand there and watch the water drain from the surface of the field and sort of empty all the water into the drainage, and then into the main drain or the dike or whatever it was being drained into. It honestly, like, it was a satisfying job. But I mean, sometimes it didn't always clear. Sometimes you had to go back, as I say, with the excavator, and then you'd just dig a channel from the bank of the dike into the field, and just so the water could run, out and through that way. I mean, there was sort of many ways of doing it, but yeah, I absolutely loved that job. Literally, I mean, it was a good skiving job. It really was a good skiving job because, as I say, you could walk nice and steady, enjoy the countryside. Especially, I mean, like I used to do that. That was really sort of a mid to late January, February job, that was. And you used to, I mean, back in the day, you used to get some really lovely February days, like proper nice, sunny February days. And you'd have a good old walk, and you'd be doing this, but there would be a little bit of sitting on the bank and just, at the bottom of a dike or drain or whatever, wherever you were working, sit at the bottom. The wind wasn't down there, so you wasn't being sort of attacked by the cool breeze, and yeah, the nice warm sun. And yeah, honestly, it was like a scene out of Shawshank Redemption. All I needed was the beer and a police officer hanging me over the edge when I got a little bit lippy. But yeah, no, it proper was. It really was. As I say, I used to love that job. It was. I wouldn't say it was one of my favourite jobs on the farm, but it was certainly a nice job to do on a nice sunny day in the winter when there was no tractor driving, to be doing. And sort of other winter jobs would have been. So, as I say, the second farm that I worked on had lorries, and it meant that we could just sell grain whenever we wanted, because we had the lorries and the capabilities of shifting our own grain. So it meant we weren't relying on haulage companies to be available to do it. But we also had a couple of fast tracks, and those fast tracks were also used. I mean, they were used for a lot of things, but we would also use them for transporting grain to usually the docks. So usually Sutton Bridge, which was like literally just the other side of the water from where we were. From the farm, you could see the tractors and trailers unloading. But then we'd also take them to Kings Lynn, Great Yarmouth. Back in the day, I did a couple of loads at Wisbeach, tipped. I mean, Sutton Bridge and Wisbeach was fantastic because you used to back your trailer right up to the edge of the dock and just tip it into the boat. And and I was always worried that I would reverse just a little bit too far and lose the trailer and the tractor and me into the water, but thankfully I never did do that. I mean, you used to have spotters there, not always, mind, but most of the time you went there, you would have a spotter who would get you to get you to the point, and then just say like tip. And then sometimes if there was still a bit of a gap between sort of the edge of the dock and the boat, what they used to do was on your grain chute they used to put this either a metal like slide that would then go out, you know, a couple of feet or 3 or 4 feet, and then as you tip your trailer, obviously it come out of your grain chute straight onto the slide, and then go down into the boat. Or sometimes they'd put like a massive Hessian sock on the thing, and then when you tipped again, it would, you know, transfer the grain from your trailer to, you know, to the boat. But yeah, it was, you know, it was a good thing, yeah, good time sort of thing. So you know, you know, it was enjoyable. You know, I sort of, you know, this time of year, you know, and summertime and stuff like that, I sort of, you know, I mean, I was out walking the other day, and again, I didn't have my bloody phone with me. I've really got to get used to the fact that I've got one of these phones now that is, you know, really capable of, you know, recording really good, you know, videos and images and what have you. And because the lads were tatey planting, and I was like, should have had my phone. And you know, I was sort of looking at them, you know, sort of thought, you know, should have had my phone. But then I was sort of, God, I wish I was out there with them still. You know, I wish I was still at work. You know, don't get me wrong, I enjoy my life. You know, make the best of what I've got. You know, that's all you can do. Um, you know, and so I'm not sort of bitching about, you know, sort of life and the circumstances that I have, you know, sort of now. You know, because you know, I sort of enjoy myself. You know, I'd sort of, you know, I fill my days with, you know, what I'm sort of capable of filling my days with, and playing farming sim, and you know, recording my YouTube. It's made a big difference doing YouTube, to be fair. Which is why, you know, even though I complain about, you know, sometimes the number of views or whatever, I don't think I would stop doing YouTube, just because it does give me that. I have to get up in the morning, I have to follow a routine, and it's a bit like being at work. It's a bit like having a bit of order in my life, and you know, and I really like that. You know, I'm a routine heavy guy. Um, you know, rely very heavily on sort of routine and structure, and so you know, I do enjoy doing YouTube, even though sometimes, you know, you do a video and, you know, it's a month later and it's only got 10 views, you know, and you know, it affects me a little bit. You know, I would be a liar if I said it didn't, but I don't think it would make me give up, just because, as I say, I do enjoy doing it. Um, but yeah, anyway, what we're going to do is, and as you could tell, I'm a bit, oh, we've got a log here that's left. So excuse the unrealism while I just move the log over so the machine can pick it up. There we go. But as what I was about to say was, what we'll do is we'll switch over to a little bit of time lapse, and then we'll do another load, and then as I say, I'm not going to do a huge long video on this. I was almost tempted to do a second chatty video, you know, just because of the sort of, you know, a few people that watch my videos have given their opinions about videos, you know, about you know, the log splitting video, and they've said, like, you know, yeah, just do sort of a relatively, you know, short video, you know, nothing no more than about 30 minutes, and that's fine, and just do one and don't do another one. You know, and I think you'll get away with it each winter just doing one of those videos, so that's what we'll do. You remember last week we cultivated this. We've got a new cultivator now, or a new drag, and we dragged this field and the one next door over there. The plan is I want to buy these fields over here. I want to buy these as well. You know, keep ourselves nice and busy, just keep ourselves sort of doing lots and lots of field work. Where are the fields? They've disappeared. I think they're over here. I think I lost kind of where I was. Here we go. Yeah, so, you know, as I say, I you know, would like to buy these fields just to keep us nice and busy, just to keep us nice and you know, sort of active in the fields. And it just means that even through the winter we'll have, you know, sort of tractor driving to do. Yes, it'll be ploughing, and I perhaps won't show an awful lot of it because there'll be a lot of ploughing in the autumn ready for drilling. And as I say, the reason why I got the cultivator was because Ray said, you plough every field before you drill it. He said, like, and that's not unrealistic for the 50s, but it wasn't done, every single time. There were cultivators available, sort of pig tine drags and sort of stuff like that, that you would sort of scratch the surface over, and then as long as you got a nice sort of tilth, he said, you would just drill into that. He said, like, you wouldn't have to plough every single field every single time. So he said, like, it would help with your videos to give a little bit of variety in, because he was another one that said, yeah, just do a short video. So basically the way I'm doing it, because I've got no way of, the only way that, I mean, like, that tree wouldn't be accepted at the log splitter. That tree would, I think. Yeah, that tree would. Yeah, that one would. But the other one wouldn't. The only way that I could do trees like that is if I got a log cutter, because there's as far as I know, there's no axes or anything, where I can chop the tree down and then sort of chop the tree up. As far as I know, that's not a thing on FS. I mean, I may be wrong, but as I say, once I get this cleared, and I might try and get all the rest of this done on off camera. I don't know. I'm only doing a bit each year anyway, because as I say, back in the day, this was a very physical, very labour intensive manual job. And you wouldn't clear this all through the winter. I mean, probably lumberjacks who, job it was to do this every day probably could. But from what I've read on Harry's farm, the the, the and this is why, and I continually say this. This is why with this map I hit the jackpot. Like I say, the farms are not set out like quite how they were back in the day when they started out. So the farm that we're looking at there, it didn't really look like that as such, but it's near on, sort of, the location was right, and I felt the location with the dairy, because Harry didn't live all that far from the dairy, and then with the fields backing on, which is what happened in real life, and this huge wood that that Harry talks about, that that his parents' house, because it was his parents' house, and then when his mum and dad came to sort of retirement, they moved across the road, and then left the house with the bit of land, and Harry took that on, the house and everything, and he says that at the back of the fields, at the back of the house, was this huge woods that as kids they used to play in and climb trees and do all the things that kids do. And he said, like, eventually he started, each year we would sort of cut a section down and keep moving back, because they needed to free up more land. And the trees that were the woods, a bit like this, according to him, that going back a couple of generations earlier, they were fields, and they just got too much for um, his forefathers, I guess, really, to sort of farm in a way, and so they just planted loads and loads and loads of trees. I mean, some of the trees would have been there, way before the farm and stuff, but they added to them by sort of planting trees, and which is another reason why. I mean, how lucky does one person get? It's kind of like, it was almost like this map was built for 1950s farm and Harry and the dairy. Honestly, I really did hit the jackpot with this map, and it is being converted actually to FS25. So if you go to Itch.io, the Itch.io website, or however you pronounce that. I just pronounce it Itch.io. I don't know whether that's right or not. But if you go on there and just type in FS25 Midwest Horizon, that's being converted over, and it's sort of being released. So he's released the map, and then he's done a little bit, and then he's kind of re-released the map, and then he does a little bit more. So it's like early access, and you're a tester, and then you go back onto itch.io and just report any issues that you find. And I mean, I downloaded the map a few months ago, and it was not good. I sort of couldn't really play it as such. But I've since, I've funnily enough was on the website today, this morning before I started recording, and there's been quite a few updates. And so when I sort of finish here, I am going to re-download it again and try again. Because I do love this map. The only thing I hate about this map is the texture tearing on the fields. So by that I mean, if you've got a 4-meter drill, it should in theory just drill the 4 meters of the bit where the drill's going over, but it doesn't. On here it will jagger some right out here, and then it won't quite drill 4 meters, and then it will drill 6 meters or 7 meters, and that texture tearing, it makes it really hard to then drill and farm sort of properly, because obviously you don't really know where your next breed is, so you think you're in the right place, and then you get further down the field and it hasn't drilled the 4 meters, and suddenly you're 6 or so meters further over than where you should be. So that's the only thing about this particular map on FS22 that I don't like. But in FS25 I'm hoping he's sort of kind of sorted that. And as I say, I'll download it later today and I'll play it, and then I'll let you know if I remember in the next episode. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to get on. So basically all I do is I walk up to the tree and I take its measurement. So when we get there, which is this tree, so it's 18 meters, so right, that's 18. And then I just go along, get a bunch of trees up to usually about 150, 200 meters in length. Delete the trees and then go over there and then just kind of add the logs. That's the only way I can do it, because as I say, there's no way for me to cut them down that I know of without using a log cutter, or tree harvester, and as well, a lot of these trees can't be cut down with the tree harvesters and won't be accepted in there. So it's the only way I can do it. I did sort of kind of contemplate just coming along and deleting all the trees and saying, oh yeah, we're doing it, but I thought, well, it's a variety. Yeah, it's a crap way I'm having to do it, but you have to use what you've got and do the best you can, and that's sort of kind of what I'm doing. But anyway, I'm going to switch over to a little bit of time lapse, and as I say, I'll just do one lot of time lapse, and then I'll sort of cut back in, and then we'll end the episode, and then the next episode we'll be back to doing sort of proper farm work again. So I'll see you in a bit.
Our hearts beat to the city streets. We began to feel the fire. We rise like tall buildings as the chemicals, they take us higher. The night's young, it has just begun, as she puts her hand in mine. We wanna chase the night, wanna dance to the light, pull the stars from the sky, just two hearts running wild. Never sleep, never stop, as we shout from the top. We're gonna be two hearts running wild.
Right, so I'm back. As you can see, we're getting through them. I've got quite a bit more of the forest cut down, or the woods, I suppose, really, rather than a forest. But yeah, so we've got quite a bit removed, which is good. I don't know why it's dropping so much over the sides. Usually I find it's because the belt's too high, but if I don't have the belt that high, then I can't get as much in the tip zone as I would like. But ironically, half of it's not going in the tip zone anyway, so I may as well have the belt a bit lower, but I think that's the reason why. But you know, as I say, we'll be able to get that cleared up quite easily and quickly, so yeah, it should be good. I must admit, there is something very, very, very relaxing about this job. I sort of have my own you know, sort of game that I sort of just play in the evenings and what have you. And I was playing it last night. No, well, I was playing it last night, but that wasn't what I did last night. To be fair, I think it was a night or two before. And there was a big area of trees that I wanted to clear and then sort of terraform the area and flatten it out so that I could build on it. And I was sort of kind of sat there sort of thinking, you know, what's the quickest way to do it? And I thought, well, the quickest way to do it is just delete the trees and yeah, crack on. And I thought, yeah, there's no fun in that though, is there? And I must have sat there for about 4 hours just doing this, and honestly, the time just disappeared. And it's so relaxing. Just sat here. It's mesmerising watching like this in action. It's a brilliant mod. It's brilliantly well you know, put together, and once you get it set up right. Which I clearly haven't at the moment, but once you do get it set up correctly, I think I know why. I think it's because it's cutting it into 4, and I should have set that on to cut into 2. Yeah, that is the reason why. I've just realised I've had it set up cutting it into 4, and you should have it really set up into cutting into 2s. Just because it does obviously cut and it doesn't drop. I could sort of, when I was doing it, I was thinking, why is it dropping so much? It doesn't normally drop this much. I mean, yeah, you do get the odd one here and there, of course. You know, you used to get that in real life, because on the second farm we had a machine similar to this. Not it didn't look like that, but it was similar to that. And as I say, it sort of would drop the odd 1 or 2, but not a huge amount, you know. So but yeah, no, I say, and then just come back down here and sort of delete some more trees, go back up there, you know, sort of add them up, and that's what we're doing. But I say it'll take a while. It'll take another couple of 3 years. I would say by the 60s we'll have it cleared. You know, so another you know, sort of 6 years, 5-6 years, and we'll have this cleared. You know, certainly enough to be able to. Eventually, the goal is to join this field up, make it longer, so extend it out there. Even though it's sort of raised up a little bit, that doesn't really matter too much. But to extend it through the trees, and then so it should come out onto this field here. If I can slalom around the trees, so it should come out onto this field here. So extend it all the way down to here, because that will then go all the way over to there, and again it will make another decent sized field, which, you know, as the equipment starts to get bigger, you know, we're going to want decent sized fields. I mean, the other thing as well is I could just extend it to here, you know, or just me to run into the only tree that was in the area. So we could even extend it to here and just leave them as 2 separate fields. You know, there's sort of options available to us. I mean, you know, a long way down in the future, because it is relatively flat, there's not too much in the way that would need leveling. You know, because it is relatively flat, we could even on So not here so much, because as I say, this is not as flat, but over here, we could start to extend the farm. We could start to build a whole new farm here, because this is all flat. And so we could do that if we wanted to. But yeah, I love the fact that at the dairy farm now, just the grain silos are visible. And not the actual sheds. Once upon a time, the white sheds were visible from here as well, but because we've changed them all over to the red sheds, they're not as visible. But the 3 grain silos, they look like just sort of 3 randomly placed grain silos. I quite like that. So as I say, one of the next jobs we've got to do is we're going to take this fencing area here down, and we are going to make all of this the cow pasture. So that's my next sort of project here as well, to make all of this a cow pasture. And then it's possible that I'm going to borrow a little bit of field, and this is why then we could also extend this field that way if we wanted to, straight ahead, but probably take this bit and then sort of down there and turn this into a bit of a pasture as well. So we could have some sheep, or we could have some some goats, or sort of whatever really. But again, that's sort of future down the line, but that's the sort of aim. I want to get rid of that building. I want to get rid of the corn crib. See, I'm learning. I know what it is now. I want to get rid of that because it doesn't have no function in the game, and I would eventually like to get rid of this as well and get some sort of more authentic looking sort of barns put in. The silo is eventually going to go as well, because we are now growing far too much crop for that silo. So with 39,000 litres of corn and 29,000 litres of soybeans, it is now full. I can't get no more in there. So as I say, that silo is going to go. Basically just going to replace it with with a couple of the silos that are down on the dairy. I mean, the other thing is, and I'm probably not going to do this, A, they didn't do it in real life, and B, it's not very convenient to do it here, is I could just transport all my grain down to there. Now, we do have the lorry. So the lorry, for those that are wondering, we haven't bought it. So Harry, back in the day, his dad was a sort of hay / haulier. So he used to farm hay for the local, businesses around, sort of, like cattle farms and stuff, horses and stuff like that. He would grow hay. So he had a big field out the back, that was sort of in front of the woods and sort of went round the woods a little bit. And he used to just farm hay on that. And he used to do the little square conventional bales, and so he used to get a lot of bales from that field. He would just sort of sell to, as I say, mainly horse people, sort of horse stables, and not horse people. That would be wrong on too many levels. That would be almost kind of Greek god territory. But to people that had horses, and to basically stables, and and also as well, people that sort of had cattle, that just wanted some hay to get them through, or to lead them up into winter or whatever. And so that was what he sort of did, but his main sort of kind of thing was haulage, because obviously more and more farms, more and more produce, more and more things needed transporting further away and different things. And he his dad sort of recognized that was going to become a thing. Now, I did have a lorry very similar to the one that they had. I don't think it was the same, but it looked similar. But it kept causing my game to like freeze and judder every time I used it. If I didn't use it, the game was fine with it being in the game as long as I weren't using it. As soon as I used it, the game would start to freeze. It would start to sort of shudder and what have you. And obviously went into the log file and saw the errors that it had and thought, better take that out. So I've had to go for that one, which is probably more of a 60s lorry, but it's again the old, sort of like the one that is more suited, to the time. But the haulage company was actually taken over by Harry's brother. And as I say, he used to do all of the haulage for Harry and the dairy, funnily enough, and obviously other farms and businesses in the area. So we do have the lorry, but at the moment we don't have the combines that can unload into the lorries, or combines that can unload into either gravity wagons or chaser bins, because the augers just won't go over the top of them. I've said before, by now the dairy had these combines, that one. So they had this combine. It wasn't the Lands in particular, because that didn't come out until 1964, I think it was. But it was the closest that I could get to sort of an original John Deere combine that was available, sort of back in the day. But the auger is so low, I can't get it to go over anything. The only thing I can get it to go over is, let me have a little look. It should be, this. I can get it to go over that, but at 2,500 litres, So I might go over that one, but that's sort of more really what it will go over. But yeah, so I sort of had to sort of hold back on the old on having the new combines that the farm had. As I say, that John Deere Lands was similar, but it wasn't available in 1954. I think it was the John Deere. Is it called a John Deere A combine or a John Deere 5 combine? I can't remember. I'll have to look that up again. But that Lands combine is relatively similar to how it was shaped. There are other combines that I suppose in a way I could use, but again, they didn't have them on the farm, which is this Massey. But again, that's a later version. And there was another one. Is it that one that I can have without the cab? No, it isn't. So it's obviously a mod that I haven't downloaded that I've seen of a Matador. And again, that didn't come out until the 60s. And that one I think was 70s. I think that one 70s or 80s. Which again is I think is a little bit too new for where we are at the moment, but in the future maybe. So as I say, there are a few options available to us, but I'll try and sort something out. I am still looking around for combine. The biggest problem I got now is there's no mods coming out really for FS22 anymore, so it's what's there is all I've got, and I've tried most of what's there. And some are just too new. Some are maybe error strewn, and I'm not really going to put them in the game and jeopardize the save. So yeah, they're just not in, but we'll get there. Anyway, I'm going to end the episode here, and thank you all ever so much for watching and taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to me and watch me while I play a little bit of Farming Sim. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't done already, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that subscribe button. And if you like the content that you see, we do lots of other things. We're currently doing an 80s playthrough on the vintage oaks that starts off obviously in the 80s, and then is going to gradually build up and go through to the modern day. We've got massive expansion plans on that farm that we're about to start, and that's the Sunny Side Up series. What other series are we doing at the moment? We're doing the farmers market, which is a dream that I had when I sort of was about 14, 15, and when I sort of left school, and always hoped that I would get on a farm, get a bit of experience, get a little bit of knowledge about plants, about growing food, about this, that, and everything else. And then eventually I wanted to start up my own sort of business where I was sort of growing vegetables and for a farm shop, and gradually sort of developing it until eventually I might be able to start farming on a small level, and yeah, it didn't quite work out because of, as I say, with my health and that. But so I'm doing a playthrough on that at the moment, and there are new playthroughs coming. So at the moment, I'm currently not releasing videos at the weekend. That's just until I decide whether the weekend is going to be for sort of vlog type videos, where I sort of do when I go racing. So I'll be chatting away in the car. Or I'll be, out and about, showing farming, or maybe walking around some of the fields that I used to, farm, especially on the first farm, because I live literally a 5-minute walk down the road, and we can do a little bit of a sort of vlog, while I sort of talk about the fields and where I used to farm. If I'm feeling particularly healthy one day, I could even walk to the farm, but that is quite a bit further away. But so I'd probably drive there, to be fair, and then walk the last sort of 10 yards to make it look like I'd walked it. The clue will be I'm not out of breath and I haven't fallen over yet. Yeah, so I could do that. So that might be the weekends, or I might just do the weekends as a new playthrough. So I've got a couple in mind, that I'm sort of kind of thinking about doing. So keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, if you've liked this video and like listening to me, chatting on, then why not put a thumbs up? And all that's left for me to say is thanks ever so much for watching this episode. I've really enjoyed having your company, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye for now.